All right, we're here with Victor and Meg from Worcester Magazine, and I look forward to this. These are your favorite albums from local artists of 2023.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be back here. Meg, of course, has taken over my Listen Up column, so that makes them our principal music writer at the moment.
Nice.
That's a little stressful, I'm not going to lie.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, and you're wearing a Prince t-shirt, so you already got points with me. Let's get right into it. It always amazes me. The first song we're going to talk about is DOS, Death Over Simplicity. The richness of the hip-hop that comes out of Worcester. Now, is he from Worcester?
He is a born and bred Worcester boy. In fact, one of his first big songs was called Seven Hills.
Oh, nice.
He is about as Worcester as you get. He's actually a really nice guy, too. But yeah, when we're talking about Worcester hip-hop, I feel like it's an odd moment because I feel like a lot of the heavyweights kind of took the year off. They're in the studios working on things. There weren't a lot of albums, weren't a lot of drop mixtapes this year, just a few singles. On the other hand, you've got DOS who turned out 3 mixtapes back in a row, and they're all very different from one another and all fantastic.
I like this particular style. It reminds me, like I was more of a De La Soul, Jungle Brothers, Tribe Called Quest fan back in the day, and this reminds me kind of like that stuff that was coming out of the Stones Throw label, like Madlib, J Dilla, Doom, kind of stuff like that. I call it like lo-fi hip hop, but it's not really lo-fi. I mean, this is like layered,
and he produces his own
textures.
beats too, so that's pretty fantastic. But what you get there is that smoothness, that reaching into slightly older songs for samples. It's kind of a classic take, especially on that particular album, From the Mind Springs a Painting. He does a lot of that on that. Other ones, like the middle one that he released, Till There's Nothing Left, 2, is a beat tape. It's just instrumental. And the first one, We Are Robin, is the weirdest concept for an album ever, which is he wrote a song in the persona of each character that plays Robin in DC Comics. So Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne and Tim Drake. And the fact that he made it not only not corny, but made it personally relevant is skyrocketing. He really is one of the smarter guys in hip-hop in Massachusetts, and I think he's highly underrated.
They say you ain't nobody till somebody loves you. I say you ain't nobody till they speaking highly of you. The son, the father, the prince, the king, maker, the God killer, the Zod. Dead the weights in the fog, making sense of what's obviously odd. The drip of a grog, the praise of Holly Salas and James Todd. More raps with more.
Who are some of the other artists in the hip-hop community here that I should keep an eye on?
Well, I think for me, I know Jafet Music has an album in the works coming out. Or at least he's been threatening on Facebook to have an album in the works, so that's almost the same thing. Ghost of the Machine has an album coming out very, very soon. Weapon ESP, we've talked about him a few times in the past. He and Ghost and DOS are all kind of in the same circle, really. Kaz Castell, whom you just interviewed, actually.
Yeah, he's a producer, and he's got this collective of other producers and beat makers. They make sample packs that producers can buy, and they can just use whatever's in there royalty free if they buy it. And he was one of the producers in that collective. Had a sample that he made that ended up on Doja Cat's album Scarlet this year. So that was on Skull and Bones.
Let's move on to Sapling, who I love this. The song that we were listening to, The Devil, the Witch, and the Nightmare. It's like ethereal. It's kind of creepy. It's such a great mix of different sounds. Again, I'm trying to give people an idea. If you're familiar with stuff like from the 4AD label in the 80s, that's what it reminds me of, like Cocteau Twins, This Mortal Coil kind of thing. And yet at the same time, it seems like it's fun. I don't know how I'm getting that vibe because it's all very dark, but I love
getting that vibe because that's what they're like.
Yeah.
I did a big cover story on them earlier this year. I met up with 2 of the members of the band, Rainey and Amber. They're just fun people. Like they definitely have that dark sensibility about the world. They're definitely worried where things are going. They're definitely looking at social issues and looking at how, social media has affected people, how, 24-hour news cycle has affected people seeing things around the world. And, they're definitely looking at just kind of the darker side of human nature, like the experience of being an outsider and how dark that can be. But they also have a sense of humor about it. Like they had a friend who called Amor Fati their album the Feel Weird album of the year. And they've really taken that with them. They've really taken that, and that's what they will refer to it as if you ask them about it. And it's great.
No, men I love are better off dead, so I won't have to kill no more. Candy in my mind and hate in my heart. I'm full of nothing if you take me apart.
They're one of the bands that are really on the come up, in not just locally but regionally.
And where are they from?
They're
they from Worcester?
They're a Worcester band.
Oh, awesome.
They're a Worcester band, but they are playing in Boston a lot. They're nominated for a Boston Music Award later this month, as is Brandy Blaze, whom I mentioned earlier, and a couple people in the story, Mark Morelli, a few others. It's very rare for a punk band, to get that sort of recognition out of Worcester. They usually kind of have to go somewhere else. We see what happened with what were their name, Radio America, moving to Brooklyn to make it big. OK Go, the guy from OK Go left Worcester to make it big.
Right.
Vertical Horizon, same thing. The guy left Worcester to make it big. So it's nice to see a band based in Worcester just growing and growing and growing, and their presence getting more and more known, especially such an odd band.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely a band you want to light some candles to.
The shows get loud. Trust me. The shows
I'd
get
like
loud.
to see what they can do live. I mean, I bet it's very different.
Oh yeah, no, it is straight up punk rock. It's punk rock like before hardcore took over.
Okay. when it was just weird music.
Yeah.
Right. Before there were rules.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into one of my favorites. I've been listening to these guys for a little while. High Command. This is right in my wheelhouse. I mean, I'm a metal guy, and it seems like they've taken all the parts. Like it's like almost like they asked me what I love about metal, and they took all those things and just incorporated them into their music. I like to describe them as like old school thrash with like a Norwegian black metal vocalist kind of thing. But the new album is great, and we were listening to Fortified by Bloodshed, which is awesome, and it has that creepy, cheesy horror film organ intro in the beginning, and they have those elements throughout their music. It's very cinematic stuff. They have very long songs, and they're not afraid to stretch out and tell just brutal stories, which I love.
I always feel like High Command is like listening to an album of High Command is basically the soundtrack to some epic metal fantasy movie that
oh yeah, I'm picturing
you can kind of tell the story even if you can't really make out the lyrics.
Yeah, demonic hordes invading a village,
exactly,
and just pillaging and burning and then putting all the heads on the stakes. That's and I love that stuff. And, I mean, it's great. It's great metal imagery.
Oh yeah, no, and if you're talking straight up metal, they're really one of the best out there. Just playing that, and the fact that they're a Worcester band, it's beside the point. I think they also kind of fall into one of the weird themes this year, which I wanted to get into in print, but I decided I didn't have the space to, which was this really felt like the year of getting back to basics. We had a lot of people across genres getting back to the core of what their genre is. We see High Command. That is a straight up metal album. Mm-hmm. They're digging deeper into the genre, into its roots, not pushing away from them, reaching for something new. They are looking for something new inside. You look at things like Cliff Goodwin's new album, Double It Up, which of course he recorded that at Abbey Road.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I had him in here. He was telling me the whole thing. He was like, "Oh yeah, so I just got some friends went over to Abbey Road." I'm like, "Oh yeah, just just roll into Abbey Road.
Yeah, it's like, it's easy to forget. When you hang out with Cliff, it's easy to forget. It's like, yeah, he was Joe Cocker's guitarist.
Oh, yeah.
Derek Dyer, who's playing on that, was Tina Turner's saxophonist. These are real people.
Right.
These
Mitch
are real
Shakur's
musicians.
on there,
Mitch
right?
Shakur's on there.
Yep.
Just absolutely stunning. But at the end of the day, they're digging into classic blues.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that going on this year. Even if we were talking about DOS earlier, we were comparing him kind of to the likes of De La Soul, because he really does, in a lot of ways, is digging deep back into the roots of hip hop. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel in these albums. He's digging deeper into them, trying to find that soul of them, and that's why those albums work. Maybe this is a good year for people. Everybody's seeming to get back to the basics, to remember why this music matters.
The next band I want to cover is Eddie Japan. And much like last year when we were talking about the Chelsea Curve, these guys are just fun. They remind me of a time where bands from Boston sounded like they were from Boston.
Yes.
I don't know. It's hard to describe. There was a certain sound, and I'm just being a grumpy old, get off my lawn old
but
man
if you're
here,
listening to the Cars, you're listening to Till Tuesday, you're
Right.
listening to Mission of Burma.
Yeah, even more like the Rings and the New Models.
The Pixies.
All these bands that kind of were bordering on the punk rock scene and the new wave scene.
Yeah.
Jumping back and forth on there. And they have that, it's just a fun 80s, very 80s sound. And this particular track has Greg Hawkes from the Cars on it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Ooh, baby, baby, I'm ready for love with a little science fiction and some help from above. Ooh, baby, baby, it's about to begin. The time machine is waiting. Let's go for a spin, Oh, yeah.
They are right now Greg's backing band, which is amazing for them.
Yeah.
They tour. He's playing the hits of the Cars. But he appears on a couple songs on this album too, including Time Machine, which is it is up there with my top 2 pop hits of the whole year, really. That and Keep Your Head by Walter Sickert and the Army of Broken Toys. I mean, it was a year out of just straight up pop rock. You could put this on the radio right now and it would be awesome. So they're one of the best bands out there and one of the best vocals between Dave Santos and Emily Drohan.
Let's move on to the Jacklights. So we go from a band that reminds me of the 80s to a band that reminds me of the heyday of 90s alternative. With this song, Final Girl, it's got kind of that grungy guitar thing going on. It kind of reminds me of some of the female-led bands in the 90s, like Letters to Cleo, who were also local, and Kay's Choice. I don't remember them.
I
they
remember
had
Kay's Choice.
Yeah, a couple of minor hits in the 90s.
I'm not an addict on replay.
Yeah, it has that kind of feel to it. But where are they from?
They're from Boston, but that song is definitely kind of the centerpiece of that EP. I think that and also Haunted House, because it's definitely it's called Final Girl because they had horror inspiration throughout the whole thing. And, the idea of the final girl in horror movies, she's not necessarily the one that draws your attention the most. She maybe isn't the one that your eyes go to first. She's not the loudest. She's not the most outgoing. She might not be the girliest, but she's the one who, partly because she doesn't draw all that attention, she's the one who survives at the end. Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. She's the one that survives the horror movie. She's the only one that survives the horror movie. And that's the vibe that you get from the whole EP. Haunted House is about getting out of this relationship that, feels like it never lets go of you. And then the other 2 songs in the middle, those are both very kind of full of... The thing that stuck out to me about that project is that it's so full of fall in New England imagery. You feel like you are, you feel like you're in the woods with her when her car breaks down in the middle of the night. And even though that's, meant to illustrate this relationship, because that's a relationship song too, you feel like you're in the woods. You're listening to that song in your broken down car in the woods. And then Final Girl, once you get to Final Girl, you're like, oh, finally, she got out. She's getting out of here. She's going to survive. She's going to make it.
So kind of the whole, the metaphor of relationships as slasher flick.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming in and talking about this latest issue. So of all the bands, then there are way more bands to be had.
20
in this
acts
issue. Yeah, there's
in
a
this.
lot. There's a lot in there and a lot of great stuff, and it's a very diverse list. The one that you would right away recommend to somebody, Meg, I'll start with you.
Oh, God, that's
I know
really
it's a
hard.
tough question because there's so many, and they're all so very different, and they're all great.
Man, we've already talked about DOS and Sapling. If I had to pick one that's not them, I kind of want to mention Dalton Moon. They're this duo of two guys who grew up together, went to high school together. And I want to mention them partly because their album's good, and it's also very like back to basics, Beatles, 60s pop inspired, but also because they're 2 years out of high school. They graduated class of 2021. I personally, sometimes I think that younger musicians don't get the representation that they deserve, don't get the representation that they've earned, just because people who are, the bands that are more established are the older bands, and they're the ones who just naturally get more attention because of that. So kids making kind of bedroom pop, the pop album, which is what the album's called, by the way, and technically not bedroom pop, recorded in the bass player's basement with his dad, who has a home studio, but still, recorded at their house.
Right.
And, I think that captures this perspective because it was a during the pandemic album, too. They got started on it during 2020, the school year of 2020 into 21, when they were seniors in high school, and they were putting the finishing touches on it this year. And that was supposed to be their year, They wanted that to be their year, or at least that was kind of what they told me when I talked to them for Listen Up a couple of months ago. They were so excited because they were thinking maybe they were going to get that sort of Hollywood high school teenage experience that year. And of course, COVID hit, so they didn't. But you get a lot of that in the album.
The bottle's filled with poison wine. I'll take what's yours and make it mine. I've crossed the line.
One of the things that's missing from that discussion about COVID is how it's affected people who are younger, people who were in school at the time.
Yeah. Victor, so your pick. If I said I'm going to Bandcamp, what's the album I should buy
I'm
right
actually
now?
I'm gonna cheat a little and go for two.
Okay, you can
because
cheat.
they're related. Well,
Yeah.
technically three, but they're related. The first, The Signal Light by Justine and the Unclean, classic Boston band. Justine Cavalt passed away earlier this year, just literally like right after the album was released. So it kind of was this sort of hidden gem because there was obviously I think they did one show to promote it before she passed away. It's brilliant. It is straight up hard rock, punk rock, digging into addiction, digging into abusive relationships, just really personal, hard-hitting stuff, and it deserved a bigger spotlight than it got.
Feel like picking a fight. Feel like picking a fight. I don't know who's wrong or who's right. All I know is that you're picking a fight. Feel like picking a fight. Feel like picking a fight. I don't care what's wrong or what's right. All I care about is picking a fight. You're afraid of.
The other one, and this would probably be my big one, actually, is it's actually a various artist one. It's Further On, the Songs of Billy Conway. Billy was the drummer for Morphine, one of the great Boston bands we were talking about there.
Yeah. And Treat Her Right, too.
Yeah. And he has in recent years been backing musicians, mostly like that contemporary folk singer-songwriter traditions, artists like Chris Delmhurst. I've only known her 25 years. Jeffrey Foucault, Greg Brown, people like that. So those people took his unreleased songs, some of which were just lyrics and sheet music, some of which were demo tapes, a couple of which he might have played for them once or twice. They took a stack of his songs and they each divvied it up and chose 2. And so you've got some of the most fantastic singer-songwriters and technical musicians on out of the region giving life to these songs that deserve to be heard. They're beautiful. They're amazing. They're extraordinarily well-crafted, singer-songwriter songs. Just the story between the story behind it and the talent that went into it. There's just this feeling of love and reverence that just radiates from the thing. And I think I listened to it 10 times in a row before I wrote about it. That's normal for me, actually, but I just could not stop listening to this album.
Outside, inside, I try to lose myself, but not to hide. Tell the truth, for this I lie. Outside, inside.
Nice. We encourage everyone to go to. I encourage everyone to go to Bandcamp. They treat their artists better than any other streaming platform out there. You can directly support them by buying their music, and I think that sounds better than the couple of the other platforms. But then, if you have the other platforms, go ahead and stream them too, even though they'll get 0.0001 cent. That's better than nothing.
Buying directly from the artist is always the best, or buying as close to directly from the artist is always as best. But yeah, and if you want to read more, of course, this story is on worcestermag.com and telegram.com. And it's on stands now as we speak. Really quick, we did a photo shoot, as we do every year. Mm-hmm. Last year we did the Hanover Theater. This year we were allowed to use the Worcester Memorial Auditorium.
Oh, it's gorgeous in there.
The fact that we were allowed to use that, thank you to Architectural Heritage Foundation and Jake Saunders for letting us use that.
We shot a bunch of videos in there asking the various artists that we got pictures of, tell us whatever you want us to know about your album. And those are actually, most of them are live on worcestermagazine.com. That was my job, to go and track everybody down, get a minute-long video, each of them talking about their album.
Well, Victor and Meg from Worcester Magazine, thank you very much. WorcesterMagazine.com, where you can see all the videos.
WorcesterMag.com.
WorcesterMag.com is where you can see all the videos and read the articles and stuff. Plus, the issue is out there physically also if you want to grab one of those. And again, go to Bandcamp and support these bands. Check them out there. And I appreciate you guys coming in. Thanks you very much.
Thanks for having us. Read your local news.
Yeah, read your local news, definitely.
I've been living in the shadow for too long. I've been living in the shadow. I've been living in the shadow for too long. I've been living in the shadow. I've been living in the shadow for too long.